This is CBC Vancouver News.
This is a section that often gets flooded, and you can see it's flooded here. Earlier this morning, there was a car that was stuck in there.
Flooding prompts a state of emergency in Pemberton. People on several properties have been ordered to leave. Plus,
We're blocking the doors off with sandbags so the water doesn't go in the house. But it's been rising all morning.
to the south, people in Squamish are also facing flooding again. And 5 hockey players have now been charged with sexual assault related to an alleged group incident in 2018 when they were on Canada's World Junior team. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. It is a stressful night for people and animals in Pemberton. A local state of emergency is in place and several properties have been ordered evacuated because of flooding. Others are being told to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. The CBC's Dan Burritt is in the village tonight.
I'm here at Airport Road in Pemberton, where behind me are 6 properties where people have been forced out because of flooding danger. Among those forced to leave, Jonathan Rollins. He made the best of a bad situation, though. An avid snow skier, he spent the day ditch skiing.
First time, it went great. I would recommend 100% to anyone that can't snow ski, they should ditch ski.
But other transportation has been halted. The Pemberton Airport appears to be inundated. Outbuildings for the skydiving and helicopter companies are practically behind a moat. Crews spent the evening installing pumps. The good news, one told us, is the water has dropped considerably since the morning. 30 to 50 millimeters of rain drenched Pemberton in recent days. And combined with unseasonably warm temperatures melting snow rapidly, river levels rose throughout the day. A local pizza shop owner says some people were left scrambling.
We had people with livestock who have to get their livestock out of their properties and bring over the goats and all their horses and cows and bring them up to high ground, leave their chickens to fend for themselves. We've had people from the local run-of-river power company interjects. They have what's called chocolate milk coming down from the mountains, and all their intakes are all blocked.
Pemberton Mayor Mike Richmond says dikes are holding so far, and by declaring a state of emergency, officials can be nimble and access more resources. As for what people can do to be ready,
we have sandbagging stations set up at the village office if anybody needs access to that. I think it's the usual: stay away from waterways and lakes. Have a bag ready to go in case your area does get an alert or an order, and stay informed.
Another 40 to 60 millimeters of rain is set to fall on Pemberton by the weekend. Now, Richmond is optimistic that the danger is receding, but for now, the evacuation orders and alerts remain in place. Dan Burritt, CBC News, Pemberton.
Pemberton is not the only community hit hard by storms and rising water levels. Recovery efforts continue following last week's set of storms in Squamish. And as our Premji shows us, residents are bracing themselves for another big hit.
We're blocking the doors off with sandbags so the water doesn't go in the house. But it's been rising all morning. It's kind of been a losing battle.
Hundreds of millimeters of rain from last Friday left a mess for Bracken Hill residents like Don Robson's family to clean up. And now they're bracing themselves for the next set of storms, bringing a possible replay of last weekend.
So the river's so high, we just got to wait till the river goes down, or hopefully it doesn't come any higher.
These storms, a sort of deja vu for some, stirring flashbacks of last year's damage in some parts of Squamish.
King tide came through last December, flooded the basement. Last year it was a pretty bad situation. We were actually shut for a couple days, and some pretty major damage downstairs where there's lots of very valuable liquid.
But this time, sandbag preparations have taken place well in advance.
They've been here all winter long. Like, we started having these thoughts in November. We sort of splayed them out.
But they admit there's only so much you can do when Mother Nature is involved.
With rivers already quite high, there's not a lot of room to absorb that extra runoff. And so we could see that ongoing risk for flooding persisting tomorrow and into Thursday as we go through this next system.
Potential for flooding is nothing we want. This should be a part of sort of April or May for that changing of the seasons. We want winter as bad as everybody else right now.
As you can see, river levels have risen here in Brackendale. Many already dealing with flooding in their homes and businesses from last week's potent storms. But the River Forecast Center is warning more rain is on its way overnight into Wednesday, where communities should brace themselves and prepare for what's to come. Zara Premji, CBC News, Brackendale.
Now, the avalanche risk remains high in some parts of BC as heavy rain and unseasonably warm temperatures persist. One expert is urging extra caution if you decide to head into the backcountry.
Use the resources like Avalanche Canada, reference BC Adventure Smart's webinars, learn a little bit more about where you want to go so that you can reach your destination, and your destination is home.
Avalanche Canada says that even for experienced backcountry enthusiasts, it's nearly impossible to figure out when weak layers in the snowpack will give way. It urges all backcountry users to ensure they have survival essentials, pick a good group to venture out with, and to stay out of avalanche terrain when the risks are high. More than 7,000 BC Hydro customers in the central interior and northeast BC were without electricity this morning when Prince George hit the hardest. Hydro blamed the outages on high winds, saying gusts reached nearly 60 kilometers an hour last night, causing downed power poles and fallen trees. While the outages are being fixed, Environment Canada is forecasting storms that could bring more outages and more flooding to parts of Vancouver Island and BC's south coast later this week. A Pacific Junior Hockey League goalie was forced to leave a game last week after a severe injury that appears to have been inflicted by a player on the opposing team. A warning for you, part of this video is disturbing. Goaltender Evan Paul was playing his second game for the North Van Wolfpack last Thursday when a brawl broke out near the end of the third against the Richmond Sockeyes. Video of the fight shows Richmond defenseman Ethan Grisham with his right arm around Paul's neck for up to 20 seconds. When Grisham finally lets go, Paul slumps to the ice, as you can see, motionless. A statement from Paul's team says he suffered a severe injury and is recovering at home. CBC News contacted the Pacific Junior League and Hockey BC, but has not heard back yet. Health Minister Adrian Dix weighed in, though, earlier today.
The criminal code applies to everybody. It applies if you're on the ice. It applies if you're outside of here. It applies to everybody. And criminal actions need to be taken care of by criminal processes.
The Richmond Sockeyes declined to comment, citing a hearing that has not been announced publicly yet. Ethan Grisham was previously suspended for 16 games earlier in the season for incidents in 2 separate games. 5 former Canadian World Junior Hockey players from 2018 are now charged with sexual assault. They're NHLers Dylan Dubé of the Calgary Flames, Cal Foote and Michael McLeod of the New Jersey Devils, Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, and former NHLer Alex Formenton, who was playing in Switzerland. The players' lawyers confirmed the charges today. Lawyers for Dubé, Foote, and McLeod issued statements stating the players are innocent. All 5 are currently on leave from their teams. The charges stem from an alleged group sexual assault of a woman in a London, Ontario hotel room nearly 5 years ago. BC's struggling southern resident killer whale population has suffered another loss. The Centre for Whale Research says it believes the youngest member of J-Pod is dead. All members of the pod were accounted for in a recent photo survey except J60. Given his young age, it's extremely unlikely he was safely off on his own. The centre says the mortality rate for young southern resident calves is very high because of poor nutrition and the transfer of toxins from mother to calf. Southern resident orcas feed almost exclusively on Chinook salmon, and local populations of that fish have been dwindling. WorkSafe BC is looking into a crane collapse at a Surrey construction site. It fell down at 7 this morning during a safety check at a site near 105th Avenue and King George Boulevard. While no one was injured, WorkSafe has issued a stop use order on the crane and a stop work order in the area. This comes after a crane collapsed in Burnaby last week. Some are now raising questions about the effectiveness of crane operating training. A Vancouver lawyer has resigned her license to practice law. It comes after she filed a lawsuit against a neighbor that the courts deemed frivolous and vexatious. Leanne Young spoke with our reporter Bethany Lindsay about this story.
So this lawyer, Naomi Arbabi, she was upset because one of her neighbors in a Fairview condo building had installed a glass privacy divider on her deck. It was actually the condo strata that installed it. And so she filed a lawsuit against the neighbor, accusing her of trespass. But it was written in a very unusual way. She said that it would not be tried on any sort of actual written legal statutes. It would be based on the law of the land. She identified herself as I, a woman, Naomi Arbabi, all lowercase.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and
not standard legal kind of talk, right?
Exactly.
And she's actually a licensed lawyer, though.
Well, she was a licensed lawyer, but her neighbor took this to a judge and said, look, I think that this is actually a pseudo-legal lawsuit, the kind of thing that sovereign citizens and free men on the land and people like that file. And the judge came out with a decision earlier this month that said, yes, this bears many of the hallmarks of what's known as an organized pseudo-legal commercial argument. So that's used by these sovereign citizens and stuff like that. She gave examples like saying, Naomi Arbabi had said that this would be tried in the Naomi Arbabi court with her own rules that she had set up.
Interesting. And so she didn't get back to you for any interviews, but she did post something on her social media page. What did she say there?
Yeah, so yesterday she posted on social media to say, basically, I believe this stuff so strongly and I understand it so deeply that sometimes I don't realize how crazy it might sound to other people.
Okay, very interesting story. Thank you for that, Bethany. If you want to know more, you can head over to our website and read Bethany's story. Thanks for that.
Leanne Young reporting with Bethany Lindsay. Now, 6 months ago, even the most diehard fan may have not believed this. The Vancouver Canucks, who finished 6th in their division last year and failed to make the playoffs, are tied for first place in the NHL with the Boston Bruins. It's a good place to be, but as one hockey analyst says, the trade deadline is fast approaching, and the Canucks need to lock in the squad that will give them the best shot at the Stanley Cup.
Looking pretty good on all fronts. You also don't want to mess with the chemistry too much either, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made a small move, a minor addition during the trade deadline.
Jake Gensel of the Pittsburgh Penguins is the name that's been tossed around as a potential forward. CN says the Canucks could use an extra defenseman alongside captain Quinn Hughes. He's been one of the best defensive, or has one of the best defensive records in the league. The trade deadline is March 8th. Deciding where to invest your money while staying environmentally conscious can be tough. After the break, an expert is going to have some tips for you on using your money while staying green. Stick around. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. A local art foundation has once again held a vote to choose the Chinese character that best represents 2023. On the Coast host Amy Bell sat down with a longtime Richmond City Councillor and the Art Foundation chair to look at this year's results.
Last year, a local art foundation held a vote. It asked Canadians which written Chinese character they felt best described 2022. And the character that received the most votes was inflation. This year, the foundation held the vote again, asking people for the character they felt best sums up 2023. And for more on what members of the community picked this year, we are joined by Chak Au. So you've got the votes counted. What was the character that Canadians feel best represents 2023?
Well, this year they picked the word rent as the Chinese character of the year for 2023.
And that seems very fitting. It's on a lot of people's minds. What was the second place vote this year? I'm curious.
The second place role is interest. So actually, I think that those two characters are related. I think the high interest and the high rent or high cost of housing are related.
About this character, how does it get its specific meaning?
Yes, and actually in Chinese, we got the characters being constructed in different parts. So the word or the character for rent is actually composed of two parts. The left-hand side, which is wo in Mandarin, means grain or products. And then on the right-hand side is another part, which means giving. So what it means when combined together is that you pay part of your grants or part of your gains to give it to either your government or to the landlord as a rent. So that's how the Chinese character is constructed.
Tis the time of year many Canadians consider upping their contribution to a TFSA or an RRSP. A lot of factors can impact how much you might give, from salary changes to big upcoming expenses. In recent years, more people, though, are adding environmental impact to that list. So how can you invest, grow your money, and be climate conscious? Well, George Benson is a sustainable finance expert and a member of the BC Climate Solutions Council, and he is with us now. George, thanks for coming in. Pleasure. Where should someone start if they want to be greener, but also want to grow their money?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I think the first thing to say right away is that when we're talking about sustainability in finance, we're not just talking about a nice to have, we're talking about an essential. 70% of the global economy has committed to a net zero target by 2050. 40% of all global asset managers have made some sort of net zero commitment. So this is the water we swim in now, so to speak. And so in terms of the really actionable things that people can do, I really have 3 simple rules. The first is do no harm. Take a look at the institutions that you're banking with, that you're investing with, and ask the question, are these people actually walking the talk? There's great things out there like the Banking on Climate Chaos Index. There's the Science-Based Targets Initiative. You can look through there and find a good spot, just at the high level, who's doing the right stuff. The second one is to look for the leaders. Those same indices will tell you the places where you can put your money at a high level, and there's specific assets and resources like the fossilfuelfreefunds.ca. You can check in there and see what are the specific investment instruments that are available to you as a retail investor that you can check out. The last thing is to invest in yourself. We really think a lot about climate change as like, how is this big bank going to divest, or what's the big scary thing I need to do? But in reality, if you're looking to put your money somewhere where it can help the planet and yourself, look at your home, look at your vehicle, a little bit of insulation, going from an internal combustion vehicle to even a hybrid. Those are all very tangible improvements that can give you money in your pocket right away.
Still, though, for some people, cost is a factor. So how do you work that out?
Cost is always going to be a factor, and I think one of the key things we always need to do is take a long-term view. So yes, we look at something like a heat pump, for example. That's a big wad of cash that you got to put out right away. Now, we are very lucky to live in a province here in BC where there's a lot of incentives. You have utilities, cities, and the province all weighing in. You can be looking at as much as $25,000 in incentives to put in there, and yet still, that's not enough for some people. But if you're thinking about the resale of your home, you're thinking about the need for heating and cooling in your house, sometimes that can pencil a little bit better for you. But even then, going a step down and saying, have I checked my windows and doors? Have I done my insulation? Again, internal combustion to a hybrid instead of an EV. Those are all really manageable steps for a lot of folks that don't seem as big and scary as the big cost.
And lastly, we appreciate your time. When it comes to investing back to the RRSP or TFSA, will you make the same amount of money going more green, if we can call it that, than you would have before?
Absolutely. In almost every case, that's been true. And as we get into the climate risks that are facing the financial sector, places that are less exposed to fossil fuels, more invested in solutions, you're going to be walking out ahead.
Great. George Benson, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Some Canadians may have to change where they get specialty drugs after a new deal between insurance giant Manulife and pharmacy owner Loblaw. As Nisha Patel shows us, it's raising questions about competition.
Kiro Mase prides himself on running an independent pharmacy.
It's the embodiment of what I want healthcare to be. I would like it to be more personalized.
He worries new agreements in the pharmacare sector will erode those standards.
We're slowly moving towards the American model where it's all going to be just high volume pill factories.
Patients who are insured by Manulife and need specialty drugs used to be able to get them from either Bayshore Healthcare or Loblaw-owned pharmacies. For many now, Loblaw is their only option. Manulife says specialty drugs represent less than 1% of prescription claims in Canada. They're expensive and are used to treat illnesses like cancer, osteoporosis, and hepatitis C.
Manulife has identified that they're basically able to get a better deal by just going to a single provider.
That keeps costs down for the insurer, though it raises concerns about choice for patients who live in rural or remote areas.
They may go to their pharmacy that they regularly go to and find out that they have to switch pharmacies or go somewhere else.
Manulife says the move will offer greater convenience. Loblaw says patients shouldn't notice a difference, and they can pick up prescriptions or have them delivered to their home. Arrangements like these that offer a preferred pharmacy have become more common in Canada, though rules ban them in Quebec. Some experts suggest they limit competition if smaller pharmacies feel squeezed.
If they're left out of being able to sign these larger deals, how does this affect their business model? And how does it make it viable for them to remain open?
You're going to have probably two big players in the pharmacy field, okay? And they're going to control the entire market, and then they're going to call the shots.
He and others wonder if deals like these will be a slippery slope. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
There is a live shot of Harbour Centre and Grouse Mountain in the background. After the rain comes more rain. Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide forecast right after this.
It's a long way to the finish line. Got a hard road ahead.
I'm not quite sure what's going on here.
This is our first year that we've been in Fan Park, and we're here this year because we were hosting the World Championships.
I'm going to go up this ice wall, apparently. Now, Carla's given me great instruction. Whether I can follow great instruction is another question.
It's actually a nice structure for anyone to come down and use. We're open 7 days a week.
So this one I'm reaching too far, right? I don't want to go that far?
No, that's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody out there who wants to climb it can come climb it here while they're getting ready for the World Championships. I'm pretty sure the pros will be a little bit better than me.
So then pick up your right foot.
Okay.
Pick it out and re-kick, yeah. We have the boots, harnesses, crampons, ice axes, helmets. Everything's provided for you. We have qualified instructors here to teach you the movement skills you need to get on, and we have people that would teach you how to belay. The weekend of February 16th through 19th, which is the Family Day weekend, we have the UIAA World Ice Climbing Championships. So it's the first time they've been held in North America in like 22 years, so it's pretty cool.
Whoa.
We have 100 to 150 athletes coming from all over the world, and actually just finished the World Cup in Korea. And once that's wrapped up, all the top athletes will be heading this way. Oh, it's phenomenal. I'm super excited about having it here in the Ice District. I mean, seriously, how cool is that going to look when that structure's finished and having athletes climbing on it and this place packed full of people? So during that weekend, there'll be a festival as well. So there'll be live music, we'll have food, entertainment, there's going to be a VIP area.
Oh!
Now it gets way easier once you know how to do it. But everyone who starts off like this.
Oh, that is so hard. Hard to do, but good instructing, Carla. Loved it. So come out and try it, everybody.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
This is Vancouver Island is the brand new podcast that explores stories of island life. Each week, host Catherine Marlowe looks at the joys and challenges of living on the island. Subscribe on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. And BC Today is the call-in show where British Columbians make their voices heard. And now you can watch it on television, stream it on CBC Gem, and hear it on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast now with science and climate specialist Darius Madabi. Before we get to the rest of the province, what can people in Squamish and Pemberton and surrounding areas expect in the next little while, Darius?
Fortunately, river levels are starting to calm down after they peaked earlier today, but there might be some bad news ahead. So all this consistent rainfall across the south coast has meant not so great news, but you can see here it's actually just starting to hit the island. We're starting to see the next wave of this precipitation coming as that next atmospheric river moves in. And so in the past, we've seen some very high accumulation amounts, places like Squamish reporting almost 250 millimeters of rain from Thursday to Monday. Up in Pemberton, we saw almost 90 millimeters. The highest amounts we've seen have been just here, just further inland and higher elevation than Tofino, but a station reporting almost 800 millimeters in just those 5 days. Similar for the North Shore Mountains, where we've seen almost 500 millimeters of rain come in just a 5-day period. So we're talking some very substantial rainfall amounts, but this is primarily, we're talking at higher elevations. And so for a while, it seemed like we might have escaped the worst of it, what these atmospheric rivers were bringing. But unfortunately, a lot of that runoff has caused, and really high freezing levels also brought as a result of this atmospheric river event, have really caused a lot of runoff. Our freezing levels are very high, meaning we're driving a lot of that water down the mountains as we see a lot of snow melt very early in the season. And so as this next atmospheric river event moves in, we can expect to see more of that snow melt and potentially some more dangerous risk of flooding conditions in places like Pemberton. So right now we were seeing here in the really the Lillooet River, it was where we were seeing that flooding along Airport Road. Now we can expect that might return later in the next 48, 72 hours or so, but it's far from certain. So we have seen that those river levels peak. We are seeing some improvement, but there's a possibility that we see a return to those dangerous conditions. And so if we take a look, still lots more rain coming, but we're starting to see some more snow build in as those temperatures come down, those freezing levels fall again, and so we might see a bit of stabilization in terms of that snow melt. Now across the province, we are seeing quite a bit of rain move in, breaking into the interior even in places, but the big story will be along the south coast. We do have some snow up further up and at higher elevations, but for the most part, we are talking about the rain. Still plenty more to come in Tofino, expecting as much as 100 millimeters, particularly at higher elevations on the island. And here in Vancouver, it really depends on where you're sitting in Metro Vancouver and along the lower mainland. So in terms of freezing levels, we are starting to come back down, but a little bit more slowly than we might hope, because we are going to see at least a couple more days where we can continue to see this snow melt. And then in terms of conditions, a little bit of activity in the southern interior, but that's mostly just a really small chance of showers. For the most part, all the activity will be happening on the coast, although it will be very active. Then we see plenty of rain coming for the local mountains in the next few days. Not a hint of snow, at least for the next few days. And then a very consistent forecast once again, except that temperature starts to come down at the end of this week.
Okay, lots to consider. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That begins tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.